And he was talking about ads. Well, one Republican strategy recently has been to run anti-trans advertising, even though only a little more than 1% of the adult American population identifies as transgender. To talk about that, we have reached Chrissy Stroop. She is the senior correspondent of Religion Dispatches and co-founder of Flytrap Media. Chrissy, thank you so much for making time for us this afternoon.
Thanks very much for having me, Jacqueline.
So Donald Trump's campaign reportedly spent more than $20 million recently on anti-trans ads. And as a transgender woman, what has it been like seeing all of these ads flooding the airwaves?
It's certainly disturbing. It feels dehumanizing, and I mean that is the whole politics of it. It's using a small population, marginalized population, as a wedge issue by dehumanizing us. And yeah, it's a lot of us, I think, are just really upset about it. But at the same time, I do want to say that I don't think it's a winning strategy. I don't think at the federal level at this point that anti-trans agitation is going to work.
What do you mean by that?
Well, over the last few years, during the Biden administration, the backlash against human rights in the United States has continued, certainly at the state level. And so you've seen a lot of states enact very strict laws against the transgender community, discriminatory laws. Quite a few Republican-controlled states have banned gender-affirming care for minors. Some have effectively also banned it for adults by cutting off funding to state-funded health insurance programs. And in Florida, they even went so far under Governor Ron DeSantis as to basically declare trans IDs invalid by fiat, using the state bureaucracy to simply say changing licenses, driver's licenses with a changed gender are no longer valid, which I think is probably designed to scare trans Floridians away from voting. But yeah, there's been a lot of this at the state level. However, in recent special elections, midterm elections, local elections, we have been seeing right-wing anti-trans actors associated, for example, with the right-wing advocacy group Moms for Liberty losing most of their contests. So I think this anti-trans panic has probably peaked. And don't get me wrong, conditions are still terrifying for trans people in a lot of states. And there actually are a lot of people who've had to move to feel safer. But I think as a political strategy, it's starting to fail, and I don't think it will work at the national level.
Do you feel like, well, either of these candidates, but I guess the Democrats, do you feel like they are speaking to you, appealing to you, trying to reach the issues that you care about?
To some degree, yes. I do feel like they could do a better job of it. There are certain policies supported by establishment Democrats that tend to alienate the base. For example, the way they treat the war in Israel, rather uncritically supporting Israel and not doing enough to support justice for Palestinians in Gaza. And also on trans issues, they've backed away from talking about it too much, although when pressed, Vice President Kamala Harris will say that people should have access to medically necessary care, including gender-affirming care, so I appreciate that. I will note that there was no transgender speaker on the main stage at the Democratic National Convention this year. That was a departure, and that was disappointing. But Tim Walz, on the other hand, is a vigorous defender of LGBTQ rights, and his record on that goes all the way back to when he was a high school teacher and coach. He actually founded a gay-straight alliance in his school in the 90s. He was the sponsor for that student community. And as governor of Minnesota, he has also pushed hard for the protection of access to healthcare for trans minors. And I think that the rhetoric that he uses around this is very robust and very effective. People from the Midwestern part of the United States, which is where I'm originally from as well, I'm from Indiana, tend to be sort of taciturn and kind of keep to themselves. And he's using that sort of Midwestern pragmatism to to speak to people by saying, look, why are you all being so weird, Republicans, trying to obsess about other people's genitalia and what they do in their private lives and things that they're doing that aren't harmful to you at all? That's weird. Don't get all up in other people's business like that. It's very folksy, it's very Midwestern, and I think it sells well. And I also just appreciate how vocal he is in support of queer, and especially in this moment of anti-trans panic of trans people.
Chrissy, we'll have to leave it there, but we really appreciate you joining us today and getting your perspective on what's happening there. Thanks so much for your time.
Thanks so much for having me, Jacqueline.
That's Chrissy Stroop in Vancouver, Washington.